right, good afternoon, everybody. We're right at 6:30-ish. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. We got a full agenda tonight, so we'll get going as fast and as legal as we can. I got this thing here I'm going to read. As a reminder, the meeting is being recorded. The order of events tonight will go as follows. For each public hearing, staff will introduce an agenda item and present a summary of the staff report. The applicant will then be asked to explain their proposal in further detail and ask for any questions of the Planning Commission members. I will then open the floor to public comment, first to the person in support of the application, and then persons in opposition of the application. When you step up to the podium, please state your name, address, and speak clearly into the microphone. All statements will be directed to the board up here and not to people in the audience. Please keep each speaker have a chance to speak once and keep their comments less than 5 minutes. Speakers are encouraged to address only new and relevant information pertaining to the item. Above all, be nice to each other and refrain from side conversation and speaking out of turn, or you will be asked to leave. Decisions on the conditional use permits may be appealed to the County Board of Commissioners by submitting a letter to the Planning and Zoning Office within 5 business days. All right, we got that one out. All right, should we call to order?
Commissioner Ensted?
Here.
Commissioner Hogan?
Here.
Commissioner Scott?
Here.
Commissioner Poppins? Commissioner Jongling?
Here. All right. I believe everyone's received a copy of the meeting minutes from last time. Are there any changes or corrections you guys see? With none, I forget, did we vote on that? Yeah, let's do that. A second and a motion.
I'll make a motion
I'll second.
to approve.
All right, we got motion second. Any discussion? None? We'll take call.
Commissioner Ensted?
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan?
Yay.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Jongling?
Yes. All right, and now we have the meeting agenda. Are there any changes to that, Toby?
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All right, with motion second, any discussion? No, we'll take roll call, please.
Commissioner Ensted?
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Jongling?
Yes. All right, at this point, we will ask for any public input on any item that's not on the agenda tonight. If any concerns or anything in the county, please come up and we can talk through it. Seeing none. All right. Old business, Toby?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you much. I think we're ready to get started, Mr. Brown.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So this first application is from Jeff and Nancy Kirsten. This is an application to change the zoning of approximately 24 acres from the A1 Agricultural District to the Planned Development District. This property is approximately 3 miles to the south of the city of Lenox. As you can see, subject property is zoned A1 Agricultural. All surrounding properties are like zoned. Jump back here once. So again, this is an application to change the zoning to a planned development district. Within the packet was a draft ordinance that I'll just briefly walk through since this isn't a conventional rezone. We've identified that this planned development district will be titled the Good Earth Farm Planned Development District. And uses that will be permitted will be 1 agriculture, 2 single-family dwelling, 3 private campground, 4 garden center, 5 a roadside stand, 6 fireworks cells, 7 private outdoor recreation facility, 8 bed and breakfast establishment, 9 nursery greenhouse, 10 retail sales and trade, 11 is on-sale alcohol establishment, 12 is hotel or motel, and 13 is event center. Accessory uses would be governed under what is the typical accessory use to those uses that we've identified. Parking regulations would be governed under the parking regulations, which is Article 15, and sign regulations would be governed under provisions of the commercial zoning district. Density, area, yard, and height regulations will be those same as the C commercial zoning district. Since this is a planned development district, staff has identified some other regulations applicable to this district. One would be the residential density shall not exceed one single-family dwelling, which the property currently does have one single-family dwelling. Two is when possible, natural stormwater drainage shall be preserved. Stormwater shall be retained on site and in either existing or new wetlands or retention pond. Three, an access management plan shall be submitted for county review and approval. Four, the hours of operation shall be between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. No outdoor music shall be allowed after 10 p.m. Five, lighting used for outdoor illumination shall be installed to deflect light away from the adjoining property. Sources of light shall be hooded or controlled so light does not shine upward nor light adjoining property. And six, prior to future additions of final development plans shall be presented to the Planning Commission for their approval. Now that I've regurgitated that, I'll address is that Jeff and Nancy have worked with the county previously with two conditional use permit applications. They operate a farm on the property, but they're also looking at doing farm tourism type activities. As you are well aware, is that we don't have within the zoning regulations distinctive specified farm tourism type uses. And so we typically, when we've gone through these types of commercial uses, we've rezoned to commercial, which opens up potential property to other types of uses. And so staff at this time is recommending a planned development district. It allows better control of the uses and better use of the property for what the applicant's choosing. It also provides some restrictions for the adjoining properties. So with that, staff is recommending approval of this planned development district to allow the property owner for the purpose of doing farm type tourism activities on the property. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
I have a question. So one of the conditions, was it no outdoor, they're gonna do weddings there, no outdoor music past 10 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay, any additional questions? Seeing none, I'll ask the applicant to come up and give a brief description of what they're looking to do.
Hi, I'm Nancy Kirstein. I live at 28318 466th Avenue. This is my property. What we have been kind of building for the past 10 years that we've been there is kind of laid out on this sheet before you. We do grow vegetables. We've just refurbished a barn where we will hold events. We do have camping there already. We do hold a couple of events that are public events, and we will be open for public and private events. It'll be a seasonal thing, so I'm not quite sure. I think we stopped short of doing everything but a church. So I think I think we got it all covered. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners have any questions?
So with my question of if you're gonna do weddings, obviously, you're okay with that condition with no music after 10 p.m. I just know a lot of weddings, they want to go later than that, so.
Yeah, it's outdoor, so the music we will have inside the barn.
Inside.
Yeah. We just want to be good neighbors. Sound carries pretty well out there, so, yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, with that, I will ask anybody to come up and speak in favor of the application.
Hi, Ned Horsted. I live on Southeastern Avenue between Sioux Falls and Harrisburg. We did a similar rezone to our property a couple years ago. Just want to voice support for Nancy and Jeff.
Thank you. Is there anybody else like to speak in favor of the application? All right, seeing none, I'll ask anybody who wants to speak in opposition of the application. Seeing none, I will close the floor to public comment, and I'll ask for a motion from the commission.
I'll make a motion to approve with conditions.
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, commissioners?
No reservations on anybody's part on how this may happen as it progresses on to other establishments. So, sounds like a wonderful thing. What the scenarios come into play is we set precedent every time we make a motion on something like this. So do urge caution.
I guess my concern with it is, I still think that we don't have the proper designation in the A1 agricultural area, and this is kind of our in-between thing, and we're getting awful close to commercial, and I think we're probably in an area where we need to think about rezone to commercial versus just find another way to continue to add things onto A1 agricultural, I guess. That was our concern last month, and that's gonna be my concern with this too.
All right, you good, Mike?
I'm good. It's always precedent that we set, so.
Very true. All right, no further discussion. We'll ask for a vote, please.
Commissioner Ensted,
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan,
Yay.
Commissioner Scott,
No.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Jungling.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown.
Okay, thank you. This next item is an application from Progressive Egg Holdings LLC. This is a rezone from the A1 Agricultural District to the PD Plan Development District. As you can see, this is a quarter section. This property is just to the east of the livestock auction and just to the east of the interchange of US Highway 18 and Interstate 29. Applicants have been in discussion with staff proposing to rezone the property to a planned development district to incorporate two sub-areas or tracts on the property. The first sub-area or tract, and I'll get back to a map on this, but I'll go through the uses once. The first tract, one would be more towards the intersection of 18 and the Township Road. Uses permitted would be those allowable within the C commercial district. Minus warehousing in that district would be allowed to exceed 10,000 square feet as a permitted use. Accessory uses within sub-area A or Tract 1 would be those that are typical accessory to those permitted in the district. Parking would be in conformance with the parking regulations in the zoning ordinance of Article 15. Sign regulations would be governed by the provisions of the C commercial district. Density area yard and height regulations would be those that apply to the C zoning district. Other regulations, one would be when possible, natural stormwater drainage shall be preserved. Stormwater shall be retained on site in either existing or new wetlands or retention pond. 2, a site landscape improvement plan for sub-area A shall be submitted with the final development plan for county review and approval and include plant material selection and locations for trees, shrubs, berms, and fencing. 3, outside storage of any materials, supplies, or products shall not be permitted within any required setback or buffer area and shall be properly screened. 4, lighting fixtures shall be used to illuminate signs, parking areas, or for other purposes shall be so arranged and the source of light does not shine directly onto adjacent properties or into traffic. 5, an access management plan shall be submitted concurrent with the final development plan for county review and approval. And 6, prior to issuance of a building permit, a final development plan shall be presented to the Planning Commission for the review and approval. And now, in the discussions with the applicant, this sub-area or Tract 1, which again I'll show you in a map as soon as I get through sub-area B. This one, the applicants have identified a specific business that would be locating in this portion of the property. So we more than likely will be seeing a final development plan probably within the month or two after this application. Sub-area B, which will be the remainder of the property or the quarter section, that'll be a Tract 2. Uses permitted are those uses that are allowed permissive, permitted special, and conditional use in the commercial, I-1 and I-2 zoning districts. Again, except warehousing can exceed 10,000 square feet. So again, this larger tract would be the uses that are allowed in the commercial I-1 and I-2. So sort of a mix uses would be available for development within that district. Accessory uses are those that are permitted in the district or typical associated with those permitted in the district. Parking regulations, again, is in conformance with Article 15. Sign regulations shall meet the provisions of the C and I zoning districts. And density area, yard, and height regulations shall be those as applied to the I-2 zoning district. Other regulations: 1, when possible, natural stormwater drainage shall be preserved. Stormwater shall be retained on site in either existing or new wetlands or retention pond. 2, a minimum buffer of 25 feet shall be required around the entire perimeter of subarea B. The buffer shall contain or shall be planted with trees and shrubs of sufficient density and of sufficient height, but in no case less than 6 feet high in the time of planting, to afford adequate visual and noise protection. All screening shall be maintained in a clean and neat condition so as to accomplish its purpose continuously. 3, outside storage of any materials, supplies, or products shall not be permitted with any required setback or buffer area and shall be properly screened. 4, lighting fixtures used to illuminate signs, parking areas, or other purposes shall be so arranged that the source of light does not shine directly onto adjacent properties or into traffic. And 5, an access management plan shall be submitted concurrent with the final development plan for county review and approval. And 6, prior to issuance of a building permit, a final development plan shall be presented to the Planning Commission for their review and approval. Go back to the. So again, as I mentioned, in discussions with the applicant, they have identified a specific business that would locate in sub-area A, which is primarily limited to, is not primarily, it is limited to just commercial uses under the zoning ordinance. Sub-area B, which is the remainder portion of the property, that has been identified again for potential uses of commercial I-1 and I-2 type uses with it. And so with that, the applicant is in attendance to talk with you this evening about it. I did talk to the mayor of Worthing just a little bit ago, actually, right about 5 o'clock. And so we did notify staff from Worthing about this proposed application. And so the mayor of Worthing informally told me that they were concerned with the I-2 uses potentially it would exist on the property. The mayor did meet with the applicants, but they were unclear sort of that there would be I-2 within this. They also mentioned that they were fine with the conditions or recommended standards that were placed on the draft ordinance. But this evening, again, is a public hearing, and what you're recommending is a rezone associated with that ordinance, all of those things that I regurgitated there. Those things can be modified tonight if you see things that you want to add or things that you want to take out of them. You can certainly do that tonight as part of your motion, but ultimately this recommendation goes to the Board of Commissioners for their review and consideration as a rezoning application. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Must have done a really good job.
I talked a lot, so.
No.
hopefully yeah.
All right, if there are no questions, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and describe their proposal.
Thank you. I'm Don Nelson. My address is 6513 South Jeffrey Avenue, Sioux Falls. I'm the CFO for Progressive Holdings LLC, and we've secured a purchase agreement for this property. We are requesting it be rezoned to a planned development with mixed-use industrial business conforming to the requirements of commercial I-1 and I-2. And what we intend to call this, the park at hand is the I-29 Ag and Industrial Park. How did we get here? We have a existing business that's located in Hudson. It's called E-Parts Incorporated. It's an e-commerce business, and we've outgrown our footprint down there. In addition to that, we've been struggling with our human resources, being able to attract enough employees for us to meet our growth. In a minute here, I'll ask that the CEO of eParts come up and talk about that business in a little bit. But with that, when we went out and started looking at areas, canvassing between Sioux Falls and Sioux City, the thing that struck us the most was at this junction of 29 and 18, we have super access to for our freight trucks to come in and come out and pick up and deliver our goods, and so but more than that, the reason we chose this area was that we felt that we could get the human resources that we need and desire from the Worthing area, Canton, Beersford, Lennox, Parker, and pull from southern Sioux Falls and whatnot. When we originally started looking at this and identified the area, we ended up having to get, purchase the whole works, or we probably couldn't get the deal done. And so that's why we've developed this into two different sub areas. The one thing that we really want to impress upon the commission here is that this subpart area A is our anchor, and we want this to be a park that is going to be aesthetically pleasing, and we want to attract other entities, businesses to come in there that are going to have our same interest at hand. We don't want it to look like it's a second-rate area. And so since we're not developers that are coming in and we're going to be here and develop it and we're out of here, we're here to stay. And so I really want to impress that on you folks. Todd Van Manen is our, with Earth One Engineering, is our engineer, and he has assured us it's checked all the boxes for us to really attract some quality industries in the area. We're in talks with some exciting businesses and whatnot, and we look forward to continuing those. The one issue that we are requesting is that the area in subpart, under the ordinance, under 2 subpart B, track 2 F2 be removed. We feel that having the requirement that we have to plant trees around that facility doesn't make sense. And in addition to that, because we want to, we want it to be a showcase, and it should be on a case-by-case basis for whatever entity would come in for a building permit. 6-foot, a minimum of 6-foot trees throughout the perimeter doesn't seem like a realistic condition for us to proceed with. And so we ask that area, that ordinance be removed and handled. We feel like it's handled throughout the rest of the document. And with that, I will open it up for questions.
Thank you, Don. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Don?
So currently the plan's just to develop this sub-area A.
That's correct. Yep.
And I maybe missed it. How many acres is that?
That's a little over 25 acres.
Okay.
I have a question. Have you talked to the county superintendent about access off the road and what do you expect for vehicle traffic each day?
With that, for right now, are you asking that with respect to the e-parts
Correct.
business?
Yes.
Would it be appropriate to have Brandon, Brandon Van Beek, the CEO of e-parts, speak to that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
One last question, Don. What, currently, if I'm right, there's one access off Highway 18 there right now?
That's correct, yes.
And so what's your plan, what would the plan be for access? Just that one access, or are you gonna try to use the township road, or what would be the plan?
We are gonna work real hard to work with the state to develop access right off of 18, kind of split in the middle of the development park of that quarter section. Obviously, right now, there would be access from that township road, but we, in order to do this right, and given the runway that's left with the improvement of Highway 18, we feel like we're in the right, we're here at the right time, or in time, or maybe just in time to work with GOED and the state and make that access happen.
So have you talked to them?
We
Because, have you talked to the highway department?
DOT?
Yeah,
And
US.
Yes, we have, and if detailed questions, I would refer those
Okay.
to Todd Van Manen.
Because, okay, well, we'll wait for him, we'll ask him the questions.
Okay, sure,
All right. Thank you, Don.
thanks.
Hi, Brandon Van Beek, 520 Parkway, Hudson, South Dakota, owner and operator of eParts. Just a little bit about us before we get into the traffic thing. We're an e-commerce company selling aftermarket spare parts primarily for ag and industrial equipment. We were founded in 2017 when we first started selling product, and have been growing ever since. We first started out in Hudson, and that's where we're still operational. Our first warehouse was there. A little over 16 months ago, we added on 20,000 square feet to our facility, and around the same time hired our first employee. Now we're renting 3 different facilities to keep up with our inventory demand. We have 4 full-time employees, a couple part-time, and a bunch of positions to fill if we could find the people. So that's what kind of brings us into the demand for the site. Like Don spoke about the human resources aspect, hopefully being able to draw more employees from the region, as well as getting closer to Sioux Falls for us is a big point. We deal a lot with UPS and the post office, so we're hoping to get later pickups from them so we can get more packages out the door the same day. So we're really excited to be able to have those amenities of Sioux Falls, but still stay a part of the rural communities in the area and offer jobs to them in that region. So that's what kind of brought us to this site and why we need a bigger parcel to be able to meet our current inventory demands and also grow as needed. As for the traffic, it'd probably, it'd be the normal car traffic of 5 to 10 employees to start and no more than a couple semis a day. So it wouldn't be nothing very excessive from our side. Yeah. Be happy to answer any questions about
Yeah,
our business.
thank you, Brandon. Appreciate that. Commissioners, any additional questions for Brandon?
What would your hours of operation be?
Currently, we're 8 a.m. to 5 a.m. We're hoping that we can maybe push our UPS pickup a little later so we could get into that maybe 6 or 7 p.m. Operational time. So,
Is there anything unique about your business that requires you to be out in the country?
not especially, no. It's probably better to be in the city limits actually with access to the UPS depot and stuff like that. We just want to remain a part of the rural communities, and that's why we really like the site from the logistical standpoints of the expanding highway. The interstate, we get a lot of containers up from the Omaha port of entry, so it'd be great for us to be able to get them right off the interstate to our site and stuff like that. So.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? you're spinning.
Nope, not at all, no. I just had some questions. Was somebody else going to get up and talk about the road? Okay. Yeah, that's,
Good evening. My name's Todd Van Manen. I'm with Earth One Engineering from Yankton. I'm the engineer for the project. I guess to answer your question, our primary access would be off of Highway 18 is what we're planning. We've been in conversation with the DOT. They're in the preliminary stages. They're mainly doing land acquisition and preliminary drawings at this time. We've had that discussion about obtaining a turning lane there until, and that's an ongoing conversation. But that is the desire. The township road may or may not be a secondary access, but it certainly would not be a primary access with our anticipated layout. We'd have a central main driveway, and it would branch out from there to, depending on the size parcels that tenants would purchase and develop.
so they're all right with you taking one of those driveways where they're at now and moving them down to the
Yeah,
west?
we'll have to go through an application process, but yeah, that would be the intent, is to get rid of the two that are there and go to one central one that would be at the 8th mile point in that quarter.
And so when you do that, then it's pretty wet through there. I mean, I think it's probably tiled now, but is there any concerns there with the low spot right along the road, or?
Well, we've
what are your
got,
plans there?
they're gonna redevelop that whole ditch area as part of the project. And, again, we'd have to have an appropriate size culvert down in there and do the geotechnical type construction methods to allow us to build a paved road on that section. So, can it be done? Yes, without too much issue.
Okay. Commissioners, any additional questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, I'd like to ask anybody to come up to speak in favor of the application.
I want to say good morning, 'cause I'm used to being here in the morning, but good evening. My name is Jesse Fonker at 610 Partee Drive, Hartford. I serve as the Executive Director of the Lincoln County Economic Development Association, LAKEDA, which has just transitioned to become the Sioux Metro Growth Alliance. We've been working with this project off and on for the last 6 to 9 months, looking at different sites in the county and talking about different type of prospects that might be a good fit for this industrial park in the future. We're a firm believer that this location along the US Highway and I-29 is a great location for light industrial along with warehousing users due to many of the reasons mentioned here prior. Adjoining land uses look to be on point with this planned development, and we look forward to helping them attract other users in the future. Any questions for me from an economic development standpoint?
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
Yeah, no, Jesse, I'm sorry, I just saying,
I do have a question.
I was just saying thank you for your time. but
I'm
we had a couple
curious
questions.
as your interest in this one. We've had many things that come in front of us. I haven't had the opportunity to really see you up here for this, but can you explain why this one is so important for you to come and testify?
Well, first, we've been working with them directly, and so many of the other projects maybe that come through here have not had direct communication with my office regarding the economic development. And
Okay.
so I typically don't come to every hearing unless I have a direct relationship with.
Yeah, usually we don't have anybody coming from your office in the last few years.
Right, and maybe there's a correlation between the two. So with this project particularly, we've been working on sites across the area, and I do see the need for additional industrial land in Lincoln County, especially close to the interstate. I'm particularly excited to see a rural-based business stay rural. Many times, businesses like these, like you heard, they might start in a very rural area, but as they further develop, they typically go to a bigger city because sometimes easier to attract talent, it's easier for distribution, and it's typically just a more convenient spot. So here we have local people that live in rural Lincoln County. I want to support rural Lincoln County and find a way to create jobs in rural Lincoln County and additional property tax base for rural Lincoln County. And I see that as a huge benefit for the communities around the area, particularly Canton and Worthing. But furthermore, there is a demand for land that can help with ag industrial projects. And with the way this site has been set up, I think there's a lot of opportunity to further attract investment and jobs to this area.
I don't disagree with anything you said. One of the things that we do try to encourage those growth adjacent to municipalities, so the municipalities can service them either with services such as sewer and water, things like that, and encourage area growth in the rural areas where that is not inducive to happen inside the municipality. And by his own admission, this is something that would actually be better in a city. So again, I encourage growth when it needs to be out in the country, but I do get to be reluctant to just say, let's do it in the country without really having a reason that it needs to be in the country. So,
Yeah, I think you make some interesting points.
thank you.
Thank you. Further questions?
Any questions, commissioners?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else that'd like to speak in favor of the application? All right, at this time, I'll ask anyone that speak in opposition of the application.
Oh, my name's Ken Sweeter. I'm chairman of the Lynn Township Board, plus I'm talking as a private citizen. I live a mile south of the project. One question I got for them, why are they building in probably an area that's probably the wettest part of the ground? And another thing, I'd like to know more about the drainage, because if we're gonna start draining down, which gotta go to Snake Creek, and we got a huge problem south, about a mile south of it. And I'd like that problem addressed, and if this project goes forward, I'd like to see money put towards the drainage of that creek to the south.
Okay, thank you, Ken. And what I'll probably do is I'll ask, or I'll listen to a lot of these questions, and then we'll ask the owners for the answers or responses to them. All right, anybody else like to speak in opposition of the application? See none. All right, Todd, maybe this one be for you. The questions about the wet area drainage and such.
Well, yes, much of Lincoln County is kind of spongy. And we are not, this would be a slab-on-grade style building, the first building that we're building, so that's conducive to, working with the conditions that we have out there. As far as the stormwater management, that is one of the conditions in the permit. Trying to look through here real quickly. Okay, it's number one. So we are being requested and mandated to manage our stormwater. We do have some areas on the site that are naturally low and would be conducive to stormwater retention. And again, we'd release water back into the highway right-of-way in a manner appropriate for management of stormwater.
So, Toby, too, excuse me, Mr. Brown, question on my end. Will we, all drainage, runoff and all that will be addressed at different times just for a rezone, correct?
Correct. So there's two parts to that is, they've submitted a preliminary plan, which is your second item after this item, which just gets into kind of general drainage, but they'll also be required to submit final development engineering plans, which will be reviewed by county staff and assisted county staff or engineers and things like that. And then secondary, some of these uses will require conditional use permits, so you'll have other times to review the drainage, and so will the public as well.
Right. Well, now we're just talking about, is this area getting rezoned, is good to rezone it that way?
Yeah, but it, drainage is always a question or a
Yep.
concern, and so I think that Todd answered it and I answered it, that yes, there will be other times that there will be formal drainage review and analysis of the property.
Thank you.
Yeah, the goal of stormwater management is, right now you have certain crop conditions, and you'll, in a 25-year storm event, you have so much water that would leave, and, I'm making up numbers, you'd have 100,000 or 100 CFF coming off the property. Now you put hard spaces on that property, parking, buildings, you would manage the water so it does not exceed the historic high runoff, so that downstream facilities aren't affected. Pretty typical, that's what we do in all municipalities anymore. And again, this is what's being mandated here.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else like to speak in opposition of the application? Seeing none, I will close the floor to public comment and ask for a motion from the commissioners.
Since this is just a rezone, that's all we're doing right now, right?
Well, you're rezoning to plan development with those standards that are drafted in there. So again, the applicant did ask for the standards to be modified, and that was number 2 that's up on the screen there. But yes, all you're doing tonight is making a recommendation of this draft ordinance to the Board of County Commissioners.
And with that, if we get a motion second, then we can have discussion and vote yay or nay.
I'll make a motion for discussion.
Give your motion to approve the plan development?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll second for discussion. And Toby's gonna remind me 20 times before the night's over to turn my mic on when I'm talking, right, Toby? Thank you. Or Jake,
Well,
or
it will go
April, or
both ways,
whoever's
Commissioner.
got- So I apologize to the listening audience, so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's have a discussion.
So Toby, with them wanting to take out the buffer, what are your thoughts on that with the trees?
As you're aware, the zoning ordinance doesn't have any landscaping requirements. So all development that we have in the county, they're not required to buffer or do those types of things or screen. When staff was originally drafting this, we really had, it was foremost in our minds was the previous rezone that we had up just to the north. And so a lot of opposition from the city of Worthing just to the north. And so we had been in discussion with staff from the city of Worthing, and they really, identified that, we can't anticipate what uses are going to be there, but screening goes a long way to protect the view shed and some of those things, and out of sight, out of mind. I mean, we hear that all the time with different types of things. And so we drafted it. As drafting anything, there's art in writing it. We didn't intend that the applicant would go out and construct a massive tree, a tree belt and those different types of things. It was really, this is a standard that as development comes in, is that we would make sure if those properties are abutting that exterior area, that they would then have a landscape plan. That we didn't tell them they had to plant 10 trees or 1 tree. We just said you have to have a landscaping plan submitted with your application with it. And so I think there's a little bit of maybe a misinterpretation of kind of what we intended, but really what we intended is to make sure that there's an exterior landscape plan for that park, just because of the size of it. But I've had many discussions with the applicant, and I understand both sides of it. And I would say that, we have required, since we don't have a landscaping requirement, we have in the past required industrial type uses to do landscape.
Mm-hmm.
This board has. And so and it was piecemeal type of stuff. We just wanted consistency as staff, just to say this is what it's going to be. We want every time an application comes in and we say, well, that one has to be completely landscaped, the next one doesn't. I mean, it was just really consistency on the outside of it. But I completely understand the applicant, so I'll leave that up to you. I'm not passing the buck, but you know, as staff, we can accept if you remove that from there, and move forward with it. So.
And maybe we could replace it with saying, like Toby said, a landscaping element approved by Toby's team or something like
Right.
that.
That's what
I
I
would
was-
just, yeah, not to interrupt you, but I would just replace it with this number 2 then, that we put in sub area A, if that's what you know. That should be acceptable to us, if it's acceptable to the applicant, so.
Include plant materials, selections, location for trees. Okay.
Okay, well, we could have some more discussion on other factors and maybe we can amend our motions
Right.
altogether. Any other discussion, team?
May I, Mr. Chairman? I'm going to reiterate what I commented before about, you know, I agree that we should encourage development out in the country when we need to. Our focus still should remain to try to encourage growth within the municipalities when possible. Obviously, there's circumstances that will happen that inside a municipality is not conducive to either for the municipality or for the business. In the own admission, the cornerstone of this property or planned development, there is not that restriction or condition. When we did a previous planned development, its focus was to find businesses that were not conducive. And so far, I think for the most part, it's met a lot of those requirements for those types of businesses that have been in there. So my point will be is, from the cornerstone of this, it still does not look like this is the type of rezone that I would be in favor of, because it's not necessary without a municipality not being willing to take them. I again would encourage development inside the municipalities. They have services, et cetera. I don't need to expand on that. Secondly, we're opening into another drainage basin. And I apologize, Natalie, if you're listening to this, because I know you do often sometimes try to listen to these meetings. Natalie is my middle daughter, who is a civil engineering student who I talk to, and I say, there's one thing that's for certain. With all the engineering, there's one person that will prove you wrong eventually. And we can see in the last few years that time and time again, they've been able to prove that engineering does not solidify that it won't cause problems. So if we can avoid getting into another drainage issue area, I would encourage us to refrain from doing that as well. Thank you. We have many cases on the north side, north of this property, that has caused many, many issues. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poppins. Any other discussion amongst the commissioners? Good. Good. All right. Sounds like we talked through a lot of the things here. Would anybody like to revise their motion to account for what we talked about landscape, or other thoughts? And if not, we can we vote on how it is right now with the conditions that Toby has written down. Okay, I think we'll take roll call.
Commissioner Ensted,
No.
Commissioner Hogan,
No.
Commissioner Scott,
No.
Commissioner Poppins.
No.
Commissioner Jongling.
No.
Motion fails.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
This next item, I'll be brief on this. This next item is really the accompanying preliminary subdivision plan for that last item. The preliminary subdivision plan as submitted does meet all of the minimum requirements for approval. So staff does recommend approval of this application. If you have any specific questions, I'll certainly answer any questions that you have for staff.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Brown? Seeing none. All right, I will.
Applicant,
Yeah, can the applicant come forward and talk about the proposal?
So this is for sub area A, is that it?
It's for both Tract 1 and Tract 2. This is the preliminary subdivision plan.
Yeah, once again, Don Nelson. I guess given the last vote, I guess I don't even know why I'm up here.
Let me be very clear, that was a recommendation to the planning, or to the Board of Commissioners themselves. So that action will take on. Now it would be recommended to take an action on this plan. So if the commissioners change their vote, I do have the mic on, right? Change their vote, approve it, then this can go along. So it is action. I had it on and then I turned it off.
Yeah.
It would be wise to proceed with this. As long as it meets the criteria, we could motion to accept this, and then the board would have that action that they could proceed with. So it may not seem logical, but it actually is.
Yeah, again, Don Nelson, 6513 South Jeffrey, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We chose this area for the purpose of putting together a new anchor point for eParts Incorporated, and with the access to what really attracted us to this area was that the interstate access right off of 18. As Brandon alluded to earlier, that we have containers coming up from the port out of Omaha. It just makes sense for us to have them to have quick access and get into our facility. I can't emphasize enough of the attraction of not only being able to pull employees, human resources, from not only Worthing, but Canton, Beersford, Lenox, Parker, Centerville. We have a hard time, it's hard to put this into words, but the work ethic that we see from the rural area, and rural area, people coming from rural acclimated towns like these, we've just had much better luck. And we wanted to be, I'll emphasize this too, our jobs are not low-paying jobs. Starting wage is a minimum of $15 an hour in the warehouse. We invited the city of Worthing to come down after we met them, and we wanted to show them how what our facility looks like. It's state of the art, and it's nice working conditions and whatnot. But we really wanted to be centrally located so that we could attract from the whole area versus, and we weren't able to find a place within an industrial park around here that could check all our boxes like this. So that's what led us there. And the other thing is with the other things that we do have a passion for value added for agriculture and for rural America. I go way back to my starting out as a career. I was with Farmers Home Administration, and one of the first loans I made was a housing loan in Worthing, South Dakota, when I relocated to the Sioux Falls office there. That goes back well over 20 years, 25 years. We want to take and provide opportunity. We feel that with the way the state of agriculture is right now, this is a great area to grow those other businesses, whether it be in the trucking area or you name it. And that's why we're here tonight. We're here to try to promote and create opportunities for folks in this area. And with that, the reason we asked the commission to strike the ordinance, or strike number 2 out of the ordinance on the tree, we want people to see us. And you know, if this was a stinky facility that was giving off all kinds of aromas and stuff like that, a tree shelter belt would probably be appropriate so that we could be good neighbors. But when you have something that you're proud of, you don't close it in. You want it to look good.
Mr. Chairman.
And with that, I'll make this real quick and just say that, from a development standpoint, we're anchored with the first 25 acres for Eat Parts Incorporated. We have everything to lose by bringing in bad neighbors. And so with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Don. I did just want to remind everyone, this is just about subdividing the land, so subdividing off that partial between A and B.
Yep.
All right, anybody have any questions for the applicant?
So with that, I mean, currently the only plan you guys would have is for development in track 1. You have nothing for planning, you don't have anything concrete for track 2?
We don't have anything concrete at this point, but we're in discussions.
Okay.
Yep.
And you mentioned that you talked to the folks from Worthing. Have you given any look at the development land on the north side of Worthing or the land across the road to the west of this site?
Yeah, we have.
Okay.
Yep.
And it doesn't check your boxes?
It doesn't check our boxes, that's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, although you're only looking at the 25 currently, it'd be prudent to have an understanding for the whole parcel as to how the development's going to be, if it would be approved, how the drainage and all of that for the whole site would be. It'd be appropriate, I believe, in my mind, that be done at the same time. So moving forward, that would be a question that I would ask is, how is the whole development going to be addressed, not just the initial 25 acres, so.
Thank you, Mr. Poppins. And the only thing I would add to that is we're going to have a significant investment just put into this.
I
quarter
totally
section.
understand, but there is a bigger picture that we always have to be aware of as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for that comment.
Okay, any other questions, commissioners? Thank you, Don.
Yep.
All right, at this point, I'd like to, anyone come up in favor of the application?
This might sound like Groundhog Day, but Jesse Fonkert, 610 Part T Drive, Hartford, South Dakota, with the Lincoln County Economic Development Association, LAKEDA, formerly known, and now known as the Sioux Metro Growth Alliance. We've been working with the prospect on sites, and we've identified several sites. This has been the one that's best fit their needs. We feel like this location close to US Highway 18 and I-29 are a very good fit for the project, and we recommend approval of this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Does anybody else like to speak in favor of the applicant? Seeing none, I will ask anyone to speak in opposition of the application. Okay, with that, we'll close the floor to public comment, and I'll ask for a motion from the commission.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second Scott.
All right, thank you. Discussion, commissioners.
I have a question for Toby whenever you think it's appropriate.
Yeah, now is a good time. Mr. Brown, can you answer a question, please?
And so as the site plan for the remainder of that track, wouldn't it, in your mind, or would it not be in your mind that it'd be prudent at this time to look at the whole parcel? I think that is a question I have. I asked that of the applicant. I'm asking you as our director. Given the sensitivity of drainage in all parts of Lincoln County, and especially anything north of this road specifically, it's always wise to be ahead of the curveball at this point in time versus behind, and not knowing how the rest of that development may or may not look. Give you any concern at all at this time?
No, because this is an initial requirement for a preliminary plan. And so the application did look at the entire parcel. In fact, there's two parcels there. There's a kind of a cutout parcel in the southeast corner of it. The preliminary plan is really just looking at the overall site conceptually, existing drainage patterns, those different types of things. When
there's nothing in stone as to how the drainage will be addressed at this point in time.
Correct, because as our ordinance states in the subdivision ordinance, that they will submit final development engineering plans, which will be reviewed by staff and by the county engineer. And those will be done when there's development proposed, and it will address all of the ordinances that the county has in place. Secondary to that is that because this is a planned development district, we actually add a layer onto it. And so there will be final development plans that will be resubmitted to you as the planning commission, and you'll review all development patterns and everything that is occurring on the site.
Right.
So there's actually a triple layer that doesn't typically exist in a subdivision process. So I'm 100% comfortable. We do recommend this preliminary plan. It does meet all of the county standards at this time.
Thank you for that clarification, Toby.
All right, additional discussion, commissioners. Okay, with that, we'll ask for a roll, please.
Commissioner Ensted?
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes.
Commissioner Jongling?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Mr. Brown?
This next application is an application from Lori Long, and this is an application to transfer building eligibilities. In this case, it'll be 2 building eligibilities. This is, as shown on the screen, this would be the original parcel. The transfer parcel would be to this parcel here. This property is near Spring Creek Golf Course. The particular property that they're actually transferring the eligibilities into is the driving range that the Longs own on this property here. So there's kind of 2 parts to this, is that the Longs have entered into an agreement to sell this portion of the property, and probably, I think it's next month, you'll receive an application that would rezone this property and develop this as a subdivision. This portion of the application is really just transferring the 2 eligibilities to here. In our discussions with the applicant, there really wasn't any plans to develop it. It was just really just to preserve the eligibilities. As developed, those eligibilities would then have to go through a site development process, so there isn't really any drainage analysis or anything put into it at this point. The application does meet the criteria of your zoning ordinance, which really just simply says that it has to be contiguous and under the same ownership, and so it does meet those requirements. And so staff does recommend approval of this application. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Toby. Any questions for staff?
Forgive me, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Could you clarify the contiguous?
I had that question too.
So the Longs,
area, is it? Am I just not seeing the contiguous part?
yes. So the Longs own actually this area here, the blue line. Sorry, that goes around here.
What is that defined as? A buffer, or what is that to the
It's
property?
Essentially right away. Yeah.
Um,
Their property is described as such. So.
Interesting. We allowed that plat?
Yes.
You want to explain that to me, Toby?
That was before my time, so I will leave it at that.
How many feet does it constitute? Sorry, Toby, I got questions tonight.
I haven't measured it, I guess, but
Well,
yeah.
no, okay.
All right, any additional questions for staff? All right, with that, I will ask
No, not
the applicant to come forward and talk about their proposal.
Good evening. I'm Lori Long, 3625 East High Plains Circle in Sioux Falls. This is my son, David Long, and he will speak to the application.
Hey, good evening, everybody. David Long, 27094 Prairie View Avenue. I'm the parcel number 27094 that's shown on the map. As Toby pointed out, the property to the west that we're transferring from is under a contract you guys will be hearing about more in the upcoming weeks. I mean, the reason to move them over is that individual, we didn't want them to go there. We wanted to keep them. Grew up on this property, was born here, was raised here, lived here for 15 years. Want to have the opportunity by moving these over to keep them in the family, to allow a family member to potentially build maybe my retirement home, or allow another family member to use the property at some point in time. It's really pretty that simple. There's absolutely zero plans to do anything with them now other than transfer to that new property, or to that property. You know, the driving range will stay for the foreseeable future at this point in time. So that's the main reason, is just to preserve the building eligibilities and have that opportunity for family to use it someday that grew up on the land.
Okay, thank you, David. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Long?
David, you help me out. How did you end up, or to keep that right of way?
You know, when I called Toby,
moving the eligibilities, there's no issues
yeah, I mean,
at all.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't do the original.
Sure.
My father did. He
Sure.
passed away about 5 years ago. Honestly, I didn't think it was gonna be possible. And called up Toby with the question of, hey, here's what we'd like to do, here's why we'd like to do it. And he said it meets the ordinance that is out there to allow it to happen. And
So is this adjacent to the like a separate parcel, not including the road right of way, or what is this parcel?
well, I don't understand your question.
The right of, it's indicated as a right of way?
It's basically the ditch. They
But it's a
still,
county road, correct, though?
County 106 is that road, yes.
yeah, but they would still own to the middle of the road.
Not on the county road.
I think so.
It is there?
I believe so. That's what it shows on the
It
map
is?
too. Mm-hmm.
But how does that retain to that? And again, I'm just trying to make sure we don't make a mistake on this, because if it is still legally and paying taxes on that, absolutely, because they have every right to do it. But it seems a little bit surprising to me that that got retained.
Well, I know if you look at the
You click on it.
acreage, if you look at the acreage.
It is.
It is. Mm-hmm.
If you look at the acreage and you took
Interesting.
you take a piece
I
of ground.
just find it very interesting, so.
Yeah, it wraps all the way around. They got the ditch to the middle of the road. I mean, that's how it's platted anyway. Mm-hmm.
So when you platted, when the father platted that off, he kept that, so. Very good, thanks for the clarification.
When he platted off the subdivision to the east, yes. That's how he retained it. It was part of the entire portion. We do this, this apparently happens all the time, I guess, when there's a development like this, they retain, the parent parcel retains that ditch line, I guess is what we'd call it. So,
Okay. All
I
right.
would move to, or we still have it.
Yeah, we got to run
Sorry.
through the deal.
Yep.
All right, I'd like to invite anyone to speak in favor of the application. All right, I'll ask anyone to speak in opposition of the application.
I just got basically a quick question. Sue Rosti, 27080 480th Avenue, Harrisburg. We live across from the driving range. I looked through the revised zoning ordinance, and I just found several comments, and some of them have been answered already, but on page 8 of that document, it talks about the parcel from which the eligibility is transferred shall continue as agricultural land or remain in its present use. Right now, it's agriculture. So when will the rezoning take place for the sale? And, I mean, when will all that, how will that be done? I don't know. It's just a question.
Yeah, so that rezone will come forward to us in the next few months. So right now it's transferring from ag to ag. And
Okay.
so it's meeting that. Is that correct, Mr. Brown?
Okay, so will, the original property will move over to rural residential then? Or how does that done?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear all that.
The original property, the 43 acres,
Yep.
it states here that eligibility is transferred shall continue as agricultural land. It's not supposed to be able to be rezoned is the way I'm reading this document, but maybe I'm reading it incorrectly.
Yeah, I think it's going to continue for the next few months as ag land, so it meets all the needs that there are. And if it happens rezone at a different point, we can't go back on the rules and say, you know, this happened before, now we retroactive. So right now it does meet according to ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, would there be a, excuse me, anybody else that'd like to speak in opposition of the application?
Randy Olson, 27059 480th Avenue. I live just to the north of this. And I was wondering if they were going to put two houses in there, how would they divide that up to put two houses in there? Because where the line is between the development, the top development there, and my property, way back when there was a railroad going through there, and we bought the right of way back and squared things up. Well, then we put in a fence, my half, you know, you stand on your ground, you own, fence the right half. And then it went across. And a few years ago, when Lauren, well, quite a few years ago, when they started that other development, then Lauren and I he surveyed it, and we had an agreement that if somebody complained, we'd move the fence because it wasn't surveyed when we put it in. And so I had to move the whole fence 30 feet to the south, which, no big deal, that was the right thing to do. And then on Lauren's half of the fencing, instead of crossing the creek 3 or 4 times, he just put the fence down the railroad tracks because it was a lot more convenient. Now, if they sell this as a lot to someone, who's gonna fence that other half?
Sure.
I'm too old for it.
No, I completely understand, and that'll have to be some kind of agreement done outside of today. Today, we're looking at transferring housing eligibilities. You know, in the future, there'll be surveys done and agreements made with the neighbors, and that'll all happen. And when, if, or never that property gets developed.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, anybody else like speak in opposition of the application? Okay, with that, I'll ask for a motion from the commission.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. I just want to make sure you got your question answered, because you're still kind of looking bewildered. Yeah, you're still kind of looking bewildered, so I wanted to make sure. So I think maybe, so
Sue?
once it transfers.
Sue, would you mind coming up so we can talk in the microphone, and people at home can hear you too?
No, I just didn't understand. It looks like on this document that once it's transferred, that's it, but apparently it can still be rezoned.
So when
later.
it's transferred, like tonight, if we say, okay, we'll go ahead and move it, so it will stay ag, but they can go ahead, correct me if I'm wrong, they can go ahead later down the road and do an application to change the zoning later down the road, but as of right now, at the transfer, it has to stay ag.
Okay, okay.
So
All right.
that's when it can change, is
All
later
right.
down the road.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Looks like we're good. Do roll call, please.
Commissioner Ensted,
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner John Lane.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you very much. All right, Mr. Brown.
Okay, this next item is an application from Emily and Jeffrey Anderson. Their property is within the Copperwood Estates subdivision. This is just to the north and to the west of Lake Alvin. Subject property is improved with a single-family dwelling and an outbuilding, I believe, a smaller outbuilding. Property is zoned rural residential. Applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to construct a 13-foot by 26-foot open-sided shed for housing their 2 horses. The property currently has 2 accessory buildings totaling 2,700 square feet on the property, 1,200 built in 2004 and 1,500 built in 2013. As you're aware that anything over 1,500 square feet does require a conditional use permit if it's in a rural residential district. Applicants did also talk to us about stabling the horses. So as you also are aware, is that animal agriculture is not allowed in a rural residential district. However, there is a provision for a conditional use in the rural residential district for a stable to occur on the property. So that's kind of conjunction the 2 applications that are it's really one application, but 2 separate types of items there. So they did submit with the application a site plan which identified where what they call a shed would be built on the property, which would be to the north side of the property. And then again, they would have the 2 horses would be associated with that stable type use that's there. So staff did review the application, have had discussions with the applicants, and do feel that the application is in conformance with the zoning regulations. Staff does recommend approval. As always with does recommend approval with the conditions that were identified in the staff report. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Did anybody have any questions for staff? I have one regarding the horses, because I think my wife is watching me now. She's gonna make me ask these questions. So 2 horses, we don't need to do anything else with this because it's already allowed in the zoning as it is currently, right? The rural residential?
It's not allowed.
It's
That's
not allowed.
why the stable is required. But we did recommend conditions that it would be limited to the 2 horses on the property and things like that, so.
Gotcha.
Yeah, this is a first for us. We haven't had a stable. Again, we've consistently said that you can't have agriculture, which includes livestock, in a rural residential district, per the definition of agriculture. But there is a provision in the ordinance for a conditional use for a stable, which is what they're applying for.
And I'm sorry, did anything go out to residents?
Yes, so we did post property. We did send, or the applicant does send notice within 500 feet of the property. As of tonight, we haven't had any calls, I believe, in the office on this application from neighbors. Other than maybe tonight, there might be some, but okay. So there's 2 parts to this. You're approving a conditional use permit for an oversized accessory building on the property, and you're also then approving a /stable would be that that accessory building, so.
Is what it would be called.
Okay. Any additional questions for Mr. Brown? With that, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and talk about their application, please.
I'm the horse lover. 47932 Oak Ridge Place. My name's Emily. So basically this is it's called a loafing shed. It's like a 3-sided building. It'll be built on site. It's a nice shed. It's not shacky or anything like that. Yeah, the neighbors have 3 horses. Jerry Schurz, I don't know if you are aware of that. They already have 3 horses in the neighborhood. This is residential, but as you can see, we all have anywhere from 2 to 6 acres. There's lots of space. So I guess with I don't know, the buildings and the oversize, that happened back in 2012. I had, when we moved there, I don't know, it got approved, no questions. So that, the only thing we're asking for is the loafing shed. It's basically a 3-sided building that horses could hide under in weather, and so.
And you're fine with the additional conditions
And
understand them?
I would have to. Is there a mouse on this thing, or is it touch?
I mean, I think basically the biggest ones would be is that, you know, that you're limited to two horses and that nothing commercial, the horses don't go into a
It would never be a commercial. It's,
Okay.
It's with the amount of land that we are gonna use, it's gonna be towards the back of the property, and we have huge, pine trees that are, I don't know, 50 feet tall. I don't know. That would be sheltering them also. And with the amount of land that we have, 2 horses is a comfortable amount for the land that is there. So 2 horses is fine.
Okay.
I mean, if you had any more than that, we'd have to get more fence and build it bigger, and with what our goals are to have them just in that back area.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I have one, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. You had indicated neighbors have horses as well.
Yes.
Are they in the rural residential area currently, or
Mhm.
they're in the ag area? Again, I'm going to reference my daughter, animal lover. I'm going to go on the record. I called them hay burners.
Yeah.
Love the animals. The problem that we get into is classification of rural residential.
Mm-hmm.
6 acres, I don't know that we have a distinction. If we allow it on 6 acres, we don't have a distinction in our rules that'll say if you only have an acre, you can't have 2 horses.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I hope you can understand why I'm not going to support it, because it's just so many of these rural residential acreages out there. And a lot of people, like my daughter, loves animals, and they would love to have 2 horses or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. The neighbors already have 3 horses. How does that work?
We probably shouldn't know about it, if it's rural residential already.
It's the property right to the west of us.
Because Toby, have
Lisa and Jerry
this is
Schurz.
the first that I remember. Has there been a situation where we've approved a stable on any rural residential anywhere?
Not that we're aware of, no.
And there's also on the other, it's basically, we're disconnected by a piece of grass or whatever, but it's a different development on the east side. I don't know what development it is, but they've also got horses.
You're doing the right thing if we're asking. The slippery slope that
There was a girl who loved horses and had a dream.
I know, the difficult thing is
Yeah, I
once
mean,
we
I-
go on record as saying it's an allowable thing through conditions, then it's an allowable thing through conditions. If someone has it and no one's complained about it, we haven't investigated it.
Yeah, I mean, there's
It's an
people love
unfortunate-
animals out there too. I mean,
People love animals all the time. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and if you look at our property, I don't know if you can pull up my map again here.
So I hope you can understand why the sensitivity.
Yeah,
On that.
I understand.
Again, you still can get it approved, and it may become the precedent that we move forward with. So you'll be the groundbreaker.
Yeah, so it's all, around us is farm. I mean, behind us, to the side of us, it's all, farming. I mean, corn and beans,
Oh,
they wrote it, yeah, and, yeah.
It'd
So,
be a great spot for horses. I don't
I mean, it's
disagree.
just like in the back, and these trees are actually significantly larger than, I mean, what you can see here. And the property next door, he's got 3 horses that run along, I mean, they're, like I said,
All right.
it's, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we got
Thank you, Emily.
2
Any other-
horses.
any-
I
Thank
mean,
you.
it's not like I'm having 5.
Good,
I don't
good
want to
luck.
argue, but I'm just
Yeah.
kind of
Is there any other
disappointed
questions
with that.
For Emily? Thank you.
Okay.
All right, at this time, I'd like to ask anybody in favor of the application to come forward and speak. Seeing none, I will ask anybody in opposition to come forward and speak. Seeing none, I'll close the floor to public comment, and I'll ask for a motion from the commission.
I'll make a motion to approve with the findings and the conditions.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just, again, caution, Toby, clarification, distinction on 1 acre versus 6 acres? There is,
No
there won't
distinction,
be.
I mean, as long as they meet the minimum lot requirement.
Yeah.
I guess the only reason why I said that, is that you have space, I mean, there's lots of space between neighbors, you know.
And if she wants to.
Yeah. Say, Emily? Emily? Would you speak at the microphone, please?
I understand what you're saying, you know,
I can think of the Blue Spruce
it's,
development that has 1 acre lots, and if
Yeah.
it's not conducive to that. It's conducive to yours, so we may have to somehow distinguish that for the future.
yeah.
But
And
without
this-
having that in place ahead of time, it's.
Right. And I don't know if you know, but this back piece behind those pine trees, that was bought from Dan Hall. And then that, he used to farm that. And also the back piece on the adjacent was bought after, you know, after they, the previous owners bought that land from Mr. Hall. So I don't know if that matters, but it's,
What helps your cause is your neighbors have them.
yeah.
And it can be the precedent that says why you should have it, so.
Okay. And, yeah, the president is the next door neighbor, so,
All right, thank you very much.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, additional discussion.
Yeah, I'm in favor of it, because I think this is the right way to do things. I think we can, there's one-offs here and there where we can handle them on a case-by-case basis, and I think this is the proper channel and the proper way to do it, and we can work our way through with those on, with some added conditions, so those are just my thoughts. But I also understand Commissioner Poppins' gray area, and I think that's something that we should be better defined.
And just for the record, because my daughter will listen, I am voting for this. I may seem tough at times when it comes to horses and animals. I do it only because we have to be tough, so.
All right, we have a motion second with the conditions listed. And I'll ask for roll call, please.
Commissioner Ensted,
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Jongling.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Good luck. Mr. Brown.
This next item is an application from John and Melissa Schutte. This property is currently zoned RC Rec Conservation. The application is for a conditional use permit for a roadside stand. I'll specifically point out that the neon blue outlined area there, this is the subject property that's being petitioned for this application. The Schuttes, the purpose for this is a roadside stand is that the Schuttes are involved in some trees that they are selling to the public. And so the application would allow that to be a roadside stand on the property. This was the site plan that was submitted with the application. Identified that the roadside stand area, specifically the area would be just to the north of the Schuttes live on this property here. This is their house here. There's a roundabout driveway, I believe, right here. And so this would be the area where the trees would be for sale on the property. So staff did review the application, does find that the roadside stand application is in conformance with the zoning ordinance as analyzed. Staff does recommend approval with the findings and conditions that were identified in the staff report. And with that, I'll let the applicant kind of go into more detail, kind of what the application involves as far as the use of it. But again, if you have any questions for staff, I'll answer those at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, have any question for staff? Seeing none, I'd like to invite the applicant forward to talk about their proposal.
I'm John Schutte, 48390 281st Street, Canton. We live there and have for quite a few years. And my application is for just selling trees only. And I actually tried to reach out to the neighbors. I called and requested a meeting on April 21st, even before I applied. They would not even return my phone call for a meeting. So a little bit contentious issue that we're dealing with here, and I apologize for bringing you into it. Any tree sales would be by appointment only. Okay, we are not having any signage. They would have to call us first, set up a time to meet with us, and it would be on our property with an appointment only. I would expect very little traffic. We'd probably only be marketing trees for maybe 6 weeks in the spring and maybe 2 or 3 weeks in the fall. And I would expect on average of about 1 car per day. My expectation would be one delivery in the spring and 1 delivery in the fall. Most of the time, it involves maybe a 15-20 minute conversation and the people are on their way again. Customers would only meet with Melissa and I, and they would have no access to any other parts of our property. And the traffic would be much less than the commercial activities that are already going on in the neighborhood with excavation, gravel hauling, and daycares. There is accusations were made last month about 2,500 trees delivered. I do have a bill of lading in my possession. There's 1,306, which is much closer to the 1,000 that I told you that we had than what was accused by the neighbors. So, any questions?
So how large are these trees? Are they?
They are 6 to 10 feet tall. They're in 5 and 7 gallon pots.
And what are they? Evergreens, deciduous? What kind of trees are they?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Yep. Apple trees. Apple trees is actually the most.
So I seen an ad you had on Craigslist for your trees, and in the ad, it said 1,800 trees. Is there?
No, no.
It's not 1,800, it's
Thir-
just 13?
And actually, I have a business partner, the guy in Tennessee that grows them. He actually placed the ad. I didn't place any ads myself.
Okay, well, it had your phone
Yeah,
number on it.
Yeah, and he
so.
put my number.
Okay.
And
Do you have any employees?
Nope.
Nope.
Well,
Just-
I take that back. Terry Dozark works for me for 2 days a week, but not with this.
Okay.
He helps with my property management and farming.
All right, any other questions?
Hi, John.
Hi.
Just for the record, what road are you adjacent to?
What road?
What road?
281st Street.
You're adjacent, you own property
Oh.
adjacent to that road.
No, I have an easement.
Okay, thank you, that's the only
Yeah.
question.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, John.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Jellin. I'm an attorney at the Cadwell, Sanford, Dibert, and Geary Law Firm in Sioux Falls, and I've been retained by the Shooties to represent them in these proceedings. And I'm not going to repeat what my client just testified to. However, I just address a couple brief legal issues. I anticipate that some of the opponents here are going to object to this application because a prior application was denied by the commission last month. I would respectfully submit that this application is not barred by 19.11 because it is not for substantially similar, or it's not for the substantially same requirements, and therefore you can consider this because this is a new application for different requirements than the prior application. The second issue that Mr. Poppins raised was the easement issue. I don't know that that's necessarily within the legal purview of the commission. However, based on my review of the easement, this certainly, what is being proposed is a reasonable ingress and egress for an agricultural pursuit and would fall well within what is anticipated and allowed under the easement. And I believe that there is a condition that is proposed that would require them to continue to comply with that easement, and that would be a condition here. Any other questions?
I have none. Commissioners? Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask anyone in support of the application come forward and speak.
My name is Bill Molzan. I live at 48388 281st Street. I live in the front part of Mr. Schuete's residence, and I have no issues with him having a few cars show up on a daily basis. That was all I have to say.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. All right, is there anybody else that'd like to speak in favor of the application? Okay. With that, I'd ask anyone to come forward in opposition of the application.
Evening, Commissioners. Mike Nadolski on behalf of Mary and Mike Van de Keef. I'm with Lynn Jackson, Schultz, and LeBrun. I was in front of this board last time. And I'm going to let Mary and Mike address your stated criteria. I just want to address, I think, a couple of things in terms of how the zoning ordinance applies to this particular set of facts. Issue one, I am glad to hear that the application is limited to trees, and I'd ask if you do consider this, that you hold this particular application to that if you do grant it, because it would be a pared down version of what you entertained under a private recreational facility last time. And so in order for you to have jurisdiction and to hear this particular application, it has to be substantially different. So if you find that it's substantially different because it's pared down to trees, That's within your purview, but that means that it's only trees and not vegetables, not flowers, not sunflowers, not pumpkins, not anything else. So that's number one. Number two, roadside stand. Now, this particular district has about 18 conditional uses. And I would submit to you probably 2 of which are similar, and that's probably the fireworks stand and the roadside stand. You don't have a definition of roadside. And your definitions say if there's not a definition, you're to use the common dictionary definition. And by my calculation, if you use your definition of road, which is defined in there as a street, that's a public right-of-way. And if the GIS is accurate, this is probably about 3/10 of a mile off the road. So you're asked to make this roadside stand for what has been given a nursery license for trees. And we can't call it nursery because there's not a nursery or garden center or anything like that listed in this district. So we have to bootstrap it in as a roadside stand. And I would submit to you it's not agriculture because it's not being grown on the property, it's being trucked in, so that's the project. And I would submit to you that you have to ignore more about your ordinance than pay attention to it in order to call this thing a roadside stand. But again, that's why you guys are here. You're here to apply the zoning ordinance to this set of facts. We are not in favor, and that by we I mean Mike and Mary, and I'll let them talk to you about what they think the impact is going to be. But I don't think that this fits. I don't think it's a roadside stand. And if you deem that it is, I'd ask you to consider stricter conditions on it than have been suggested. And that is to limit it to the season. So we don't have open season all year round. So I want to be perfectly clear. We're in objection. We don't think it fits into this particular district. And if it doesn't fit, it shouldn't be bootstrapped in there. But if you do it, then please consider giving it stricter restrictions on it as to when the trees can be sold. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in favor of the application or opposition?
I guess I just have, oh, sorry, Peggy Vandekeef, 48383 281st Street. My husband and I rent my in-laws' property for our cattle operation and our farming operation. We live just to the curve south of my in-laws. And then John Shree lives just to the north of them. I guess to mention one thing that John did bring up is, yes, he did make a phone call to Frank and Mary and asked if the 4 of us could meet with him and record the conversation. We discussed this with Mike, and it was requested that we not meet at John's, not meet at Frank and Mary's, but on the road and have a recorded conversations. No attorneys, no nothing. So, which was the reason why we chose not to engage in that conversation. There's nothing else to say about that. So I read through the first letter dated May 5th to the Planning and Zoning Commissions requesting the recommendation for the roadside stand. The only thing that I really comes to my attention is that we are not, it clearly says in that letter, we are not hiring any employees. From there, then I'm going to go on to reference the actual application. where it clearly says, if you read in part 3, the very final line, no additional employees will be hired. Employees, yes. Employees, no. How are the trucks getting unloaded? That's a lot of work. Those are heavy pots. So it's questions. So that's one. It's just, it seems kind of like they're contradicting each other. It also says in that same section 3, no additional buildings are being planned at this time. It doesn't say no additional buildings are being planned. It says at this time. That raises red flags to me. Yeah, so I question the employees. So I question where this is going to go from here. I also bring up the same argument as Mike. Roadside stand, we're far from a road. It's not a road. And the trucks. How many trucks actually delivered trees this year? I wasn't home. I don't know. I believe there was 4. I may be wrong, but I believe there was 4. How are these trucks going to... We did have one issue where after a rain, one of the trucks drove into, onto, and through my in-laws' yard and got stuck. When you cannot Google Maps our area, if you Google Map my address, it will put you in a gravel pit. It just doesn't work. So do we have a way to guarantee that type of thing will not happen? We have hot wire up in the spring with our cattle in the cornfields. He could have easily gone through the hot wire and we would have had cattle everywhere. It didn't happen, could have happened. So I just think those cares and concerns need to be addressed and those questions need to be answered. We have nothing against them personally, I swear. This is our life. Those cows, that farm, this is our life. My husband's lived on this property, and so is his brother and his sister their entire year, and my husband and my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law. This is their life. And this is now mine and my daughter's. So I think thank you for hearing us.
Thank you, Peggy. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition of the application? Okay.
Can we speak to her questions?
Yep, I was just going to ask you guys up. Oh, one more gentleman to speak in opposition, and then we'll ask you guys up.
I'm Mike Van de Kieft, 48386 281st Street. I guess I've already pretty much told you at the last meeting what my problems were, but I'd just like to run through that again. Basically, the easement to the property that this roadside stand is going to be on does not say anything about business on that property. So as far as trucks, pickups, trailers, cars, flying back and forth is not my explanation of the easement. Now, if they want to raise pumpkins or watermelons and haul them to town or to a roadside stand by town, I have no quarrel with that. But I don't like it on the building site. So I guess rather than go through what we've already discussed, that's about all I have to say for right now.
Thank you very much. All right, is anybody else in opposition?
Hi, guys, I'm Chris Jorgensen, Mike and Mary's daughter. I live at 28072 483rd Avenue. I have a couple concerns about this. As the crow flies, we just live up the way from them. But in just one day alone, even though there's no stand, there's no sales there, there was 4 trailers that went back to the Shooties. What do we need livestock trailers for with goosenecks if we don't have the approval for it yet? That's a concern for me. Another concern is that there is a young man that I know and actually ended up living with the Shooties who stated that he posted on Facebook, Snapchat, that he needed help to unload trees. So there again, there's another point to that. It's not just John and Melissa working this. There's more people. They're inviting people to come out. This is more traffic. So in just one day alone, you have 4 stock trailers that are going back to this place, and it hasn't been approved yet for a roadside stand or anything else. So it's just another concern that I have with all the traffic, and you know, the road is not in good shape anyway to have all this weight brought back there. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Chris. Is there anyone else that speak in opposition of the application? Okay, seeing none, I'll invite you guys up and we answer. Oh, one more quick one, if it's new information.
Micaiah Vandekeef, 48383 281st Street. I'm the daughter of Randy and Peggy Vandekeef. I'm the daughter of Randy and Peggy Vandekeef, and I'm the granddaughter of Mary and Frank Vandekeef. I'm the 3rd generation to be on this family farm. It was a milk farm beforehand, and now we do cattle. To have that many people going on a road to cattle that have cattle on there or other people is just a really huge concern. Cattle get very spooky. Most of ours are pretty good, but if you have the wrong person or you have a bunch of kids yelling, that can get really dangerous really fast. Yes, we have fences up, but they're not always a guarantee, and that's just how that is. So that needs to be taken in consideration. It is a dead-end road, so there's a lot of people that like to come wander, and they will end up on Frank and Mary's ground more than anything else. They used to go to John and Melissa, so adding that in, you're just going to have more traffic than you already do because people are going to want to go look and see and what's back there. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'll ask you guys up and we can speak on this.
I'm Melissa Schutte. I live at 48390 281st Street in Canton. I would like to reemphasize that this is also our home and our life as well. Not taking anything away from the Vandekeefs. We all enjoy a wonderful lifestyle in our community, and we have no plans to change that lifestyle. Our hope is to only enhance lifestyle. I'll remind you again that this request is not for any of the things, many of the concerns that were brought up tonight. This is not what this request is for. This request is strictly for tree sales. Have the copy of the bill of lading for 1 truck. And yes, that truck did end up on the Vandekeef's lawn by accident. It was unfortunate. However, I believe it was the next morning, John went to the Vandekeef's, asked if he could help repair the damage that was done, and apologized. That was met with no desire for us to help in that regard. As far as employees, as John stated, we do have one employee that is not associated with the tree sales at all. He is just a hired man, helps with projects around the farm, helps with some of our real estate projects as well. So occasionally he is out at our home, drives a standard truck. As far as multiple trailers, I can stand here in full conscience and tell you that I can show you my sales tax records, and that would prove otherwise as to having up to 4 to 5 trailers a day. As far as having young men unload the truck, yes, we did have 3 young high school men that helped for about 4 hours unloading the semi. Honestly, I thought that was a good thing. We paid them well. They sat at our table and ate supper with us after it. So that would be once to twice a year when we have trucks. We intend to limit the time ourselves of sales. And just one more thing about employees. I will be home full-time starting Thursday. I am done with my job on Thursday, and I plan to be home full-time. So appointments would be made with me. We would be giving specific directions to our property so that we can try to eliminate as many inconveniences for the Vandekeefs as possible. Without the option of putting up signage, can we guarantee that an occasional person might end up on their yard? No, I can't guarantee that, but we'll do that, everything in our power to make that happen. There's one more thing I was going to address. I don't remember what the other question was. Anything else?
John Schutte again. The only thing I would mention is that with tree sales, there aren't kids.
Right.
And any guests that would come to our place is by appointment only, and we'll be there. And if somebody comes and we aren't there, they're trespassing. Okay, and we probably have more trespassers driving as far as people coming to on the dead end road just looking around than anything else. And which address something for the county to address is a place to turn around on the road now that it ends. I don't think the Vandekeefs or us should be responsible for giving the public a place to turn around. I think either a cul-de-sac type of place or a big enough area for them to turn around is something that's very important to alleviate a lot of the issues of people driving on our yards.
One quick question. So are you already currently selling the trees? Have you started selling them?
We have some that we've sold.
Okay. But without a conditional use permit, you
Correct.
started selling
A
them?
lot of them are family members, high school classmates. Some of them are business
Well, that's fine. I was
acquaintances
just
that
curious
have-
if that's what's already been happening.
And again, we're trying to do it legally.
Our intention was to have it in place previously, but obviously that didn't happen.
We probably wouldn't have ordered trees if we'd known it was this big of a deal.
Yeah.
We just didn't think it would be an issue at all.
Thank you, guys.
I think we did.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, commissioners, we've heard from both sides. And I think we're going to close the floor to public comment, and we will ask for a motion.
Can I just ask the Shooties one thing? You did see the conditions put on. Did you see those, and are you?
I'm fine with it. And, I would even go so much further as, making it for
So many weeks.
two months in the spring and a month in the fall, because it's not gonna go any longer than that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you could even specifically exclude anything else. It's trees only.
Okay, commissioners.
I'm going to make a motion to approve with the findings and the conditions put on there. Can we also just for our specification, put for just trees only? We want to make sure that that's on there.
Do you want to put a time frame on it?
What is it, like for the selling of them each year? What are your months? Are you thinking? Do you have certain months? that you are selling?
It would depend a little bit on weather, but I would say mid-April till 1st of July, and probably mid-September till mid-October.
So April through July, September, October. Add those months in on there? April through July, September, and October.
April through July.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what were the other ones?
April through July, and then September and October.
All right, we have a motion with the conditions plus making it trees only, and the months of April through July, September, October. Do we have a second? Or another adjustment?
I'll second for discussion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner, let's have a discussion.
I just want to say, I mean, I understand the opposition to it, and I understand the cattle and their questions on the trucks and employees and maybe the verbiage on the application may be wrong, no extra employees. I just think maybe sometimes things might get construed, but I have a problem with limiting people to make a living. You can't allow one family to make a living on their family property and take away from another family. I have a problem with that.
Those are good points, I understand. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I mean, it's just reiteration, I guess, from last month and my feelings on it. I mean, I think the designation's wrong, and even with the extra conditions and, limiting it down to trees, and I agree with Commissioner Hogan, but I still think that we do set precedents that way, and if we don't have the proper designation for what the business actually is, I just think that makes for muddy waters in the future, I guess.
I yield.
I'm waiting to hear what you have to say.
You'd be the only one. I appreciate trying very hard to find something that fits, but I'm afraid this still doesn't fit. Two basic principles right here. It's not alongside a road that you have property on. And secondly, when we look at definitions of what a roadside stand is, this homegrown product. This is a homegrown product. So unfortunately for me, it fails on the two very key issues of what a roadside stand is. And I do appreciate trying to do it legally, but I'm afraid it still isn't, in my mind, not hitting the mark.
I got nothing new to add.
Mike took the words out of your mouth. For me, get to know both families over the last 2 months, I honestly think you guys all have the best intentions. When you talk, I hear the heart. Each one of you are so passionate about what you're doing, and it's a little bit too bad that it's come to, the dislike that's happening. But with all that too, I do agree. It's set a precedence, and it's just, I hear, we're worried about the cattle, but if it was somewhere else, other people have cattle too, and farms and neighbors. It might not be trees, it might be something. It is part of having neighbors in that area. Things happen, trucks driving, ditches, get stuck on accident, accidents happen. I mean, I'm sure the driver didn't intend to it, no one intended for anything like that to happen. But with that, I'm going to vote no also. So any other discussion, or we'll take roll call, Joe?
Commissioner Ensted?
No.
Commissioner Hogan?
guys make good points.
I'm gonna say yay.
Commissioner Scott?
No.
Commissioner Poppins?
No.
Commissioner Jongling?
No.
Motion fails.
Thank you. Toby, we have a ordinance to read through.
So this next item is, on July 1st, STCL 34-20-G, or G becomes effective in South Dakota. And what that allows is medical cannabis. And so currently in Lincoln County, we don't have any specific regulations for medical cannabis, but it would more than likely be a permitted use under retail. And so many jurisdictions and organizations have been working across the state to identify some of these things. First and foremost is the state won't be able to issue any permits for this until approximately October later this year once they identify the licensing requirements. But prior to that, we could accept a building permit application. And so we've worked with legal counsel and individuals on the Board of Commissioners. And really, there's kind of two steps to this, or two options for this. And we've included both of them in your staff in the packets. But the first option would be one that's promulgated by South Dakota Municipal League, South Dakota. I completely apologize about that. So I won't completely start over on that, but essentially, there's two different versions that we've put in the packet for you. The first version being one that's again promulgated by different organizations in the state, and that would put a holding pattern on all applications that would essentially require them to be denied. The second draft that we provided for you would essentially take the four uses that are identified in STCL 34-20G, and that would be cultivation facilities or grow facilities, medical cannabis dispensaries, and then also testing facilities for testing the potency or the level of THC in cannabis product. And then the third one would be production or processing facilities, and those would be the ones that would be converting the flower essentially to different types of oils or gummy bears or those different types of things. And so that second version, I'll really kind of quickly walk through it, but the first version, as I mentioned, and again, this tonight is a public hearing, and this would be a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. And we're recommending this as a temporary ordinance, which allows it to be adopted immediately by the Board of Commissioners after a public hearing. But then it also allows us it would only be in effect for a year, potentially 2 years. And then at that time, we would have to identify more permanent type regulations for the county. So again, this first ordinance would require a holding pattern, would essentially require staff to deny any application that would come into our office or department for a facility that would be potentially obtaining a license in accordance with 34-20G. The second version would amend temporarily again the zoning ordinance to allow these definitions, which are taken directly from 34-20G, which again would be the four types of uses that would be permissible on July 1st. And what we would do is, so 303 is the A1 agricultural district. We would add a new subsection. This would be a permitted special use. Would allow cultivation facilities, grow facilities. The requirement, though, that there would be 11 stipulations with that. The primary being that would have to be within an indoor facility. So we would allow in the A1 agricultural district the grow facility or the cultivation facility, but it would have to be within an enclosed facility as a permitted special use. And they would have to meet the rest of these conditions as stated here. And then section 603, which is your commercial district, prescribed that we would allow a dispensary to occur within the commercial district as a permitted special use. And again, same types of conditions. Here we would add, though, that there would be a setback of 1,000 feet from public, private, or parochial school or daycare centers. And then in the section 703, this is your light industrial district. We would allow a cannabis testing facility, and again, conditions attached to that. And then we would also allow under the light industrial district the cultivation facility, which would have the same standards as an A1 agricultural district, so it'd have to be indoors in that. And then the last part of that would be the manufacturing facility, so the what I'll call the conversion of it into different processing into different types of uses or products. And so then those would be the uses, and those would all be permitted special uses within there, and then standards that would have to be met. And so, again, two different options based on some conversations that I've had with some of the county commissioners, board of commissioners. They're more apt to look at option number 2. They feel that the put the hold pattern on this has been passed as a initiated measure statewide, and that the second option would really gear us up for what districts are these uses going to be allowed in. The second part of this is that legal counsel for the county is also working with the Board of Commissioners to identify a licensing scheme. And the licensing scheme would be a requirement much like you have liquor licensing schemes in the state or through the county. So there'd have to be a public hearing, and there would be some other stipulations and requirements, number of licenses, those different types of things. What we're really looking at here is just how is it going to frame into the existing zoning regulations that we have. So tonight it's a public hearing. Ask for you to take public comment. If you have any questions for staff, otherwise make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. Staff recommend would be option number 2 to move forward with that. And then at that time, the Board of County Commissioners would hold a public hearing, and they would decide to adopt or amend or change or this draft ordinance. It has been reviewed by our legal counsel, and legal counsel says it's okay to move forward. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, any questions for staff? One question I had, I thought I read it in there. So if we go number 2 and the state passes it in October, whenever it goes through, but they make some changes, ours automatically changes to match anything that the state changes?
So the state is just going to develop a licensing scheme at the state level. They per the initiated measure, there's really no time, location, those different types of things that the state would be involved in. So draft number 2 should primarily be in conformance with what the state's looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then so for us, we will recommend going with option number 1 or option number 2 tonight?
Or you could recommend both. I mean, it's up to you.
Okay.
Staff's probably primarily recommending version number 2 tonight.
Okay. Any questions? All right. With that, I'll take some public comment, or we will take Who wants to talk?
I'm just so happy that we're at such a less contentious issue than previous agenda items here. So my name's Ned Horsted. I live at 27058 Southeastern Avenue. I am the executive director of the Cannabis Industry Association of South Dakota. So we put together a group of business folks interested in getting in the industry. And I just want to commend the county and the staff that you have for taking a different path. My understanding is the Municipal League put together draft guidance, which is point 1. And I think just waiting and seeing what happens is probably not the best approach, particularly for one of the fastest growing counties in the nation. So yeah, I just want to kind of speak in support of draft 2 and moving that forward to the commission. One question that I had perhaps for Toby would be, that can be, if there are minor edits that need to be made to that draft, is that something that can happen at the county commission level, or is this kind of set pass or fail when it gets in front of them?
No, it can be amended at the board level, but if there is some suggestions you have, we'd probably entertain those tonight.
Sure. Yeah, there are a few things, and I think Emmett can probably speak to them. He's been involved in some of the industry stuff here for a while. One question on the setback from schools, private school, homeschool would be completely separate from that, right? I want to make sure that.
He's okay if I answer.
Is there a definition between homeschool versus private school? That's one question I had, because that might really restrict business use case for any of these.
I guess I'll ask Toby, but
I was
in
saying
my,
Toby.
yeah.
Yeah, homeschool would not be under
Okay.
this, correct.
All right, cool. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
What about daycares, Toby? It says daycare facilities. What about all the home daycares?
So we specify daycare center. Those require a
Centers,
conditional
okay.
use permit, yep. So it would not be home daycares.
Okay.
Okay, that probably clears it up. That would be one edit that I would recommend. You might severely restrict businesses if it's just daycares in general, since it's pretty loose interpretation there. Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. Try not to talk for too long. I know it's getting late. I'm a board member of the organization that
Excuse
Ned.
me. Could you put your name and address, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Emmett Reistroffer from 1905 South 7th Avenue in Sioux Falls. Board member of the trade association that Ned has founded, been involved in this issue for over a decade now. I grew up in Sioux Falls, but I've lived and worked primarily in Colorado and Nevada and a few other states. Working through these processes, even served as a licensing official for a municipality, and just have a lot of experience. So I wanted to come out and commend the county and the staff for taking this on proactively. I think there will be several counties that kind of go in various different directions, but generally, you know, the municipal league has offered a path to, I guess, play it safe, you could say, if there's uncertainty. I don't see any harm in that, but I do think kind of kicking the can down the road can also inadvertently cause other problems too, where you're just causing more work to pile up later. You know, we're here to help. If a work group would form or anything like that. I had a few recommendations tonight, and I don't think they're major at all. So I'll just point them out real quick. And I only found out about this at 3 p.m. today, so I apologize. Normally I'd like to reach out ahead of time, but basically the daycare part was just a question that I think you just answered. A lot of times in cities and counties, we'll ask staff if the resource is available to create a map that can show to scale what those buffer zones look like. There are some examples where these radius buffers sometimes leave us with nowhere to get permitted. I don't think that would be the case here, being a fairly large county with a lot of space, but just in case, it might be worth seeing if you could put those addresses into a map, shade in those circles, then we can all visualize you know, where can these facilities potentially locate? So that's just a question, not so much a concern. I think we all agree that cannabis shouldn't be close to children. Then the only other main issue was kind of the co-locating of licenses on the same addresses. I brought a copy of a floor plan just to show an example. The industry standard nationwide is to always have testing labs be separately owned and separately located from the rest of the industry, because they're the ones who kind of quality check our products. So they're totally independent. And then generally dispensaries will also be separate from the wholesale side of the business. So retail and wholesale separate. But on the wholesale side, manufacturing and cultivation, a lot of times they do co-locate on the same facility. Obviously a little hard to see from a distance, but basically what you're looking at is a facility in Nevada where it's cultivation on the bottom half, the distribution and
Evan,
yep. Am
I
I
think
running out of
there's a
time?
projector, if you put it down in front of there, and
Just lay it down on the counter. There's a
Right
that
there.
circle up
under
there,
the
will
camera,
shine
there you
down
go.
on it.
And we'll
Place
get,
document right there. All right.
yay.
All right, so what you see here is where it says phase 2. That's regarding a construction timeline. For today's purpose means nothing. This phase 2 area is the cultivation. These are all rooms where the cannabis plants are grown. And then there's rooms where you're processing them after they're grown. They have to dry. They have to cure, be trimmed, things like that. Then in the middle here is kind of the warehouse and logistics area, shipping, receiving, storage, vaults, things like that. And then over in this corner is where we do the extractions and the production of the products. The reason the industry likes to put those two licenses in the same facility, it's called a co-license facility most often, is because on the wholesale side, we grow it and then we send it to the manufacturing license where they extract it. When it's in the same building, we don't have to drive it across town. It's a better security measure, a better inventory tracking measure, just better control of the wholesale side of the business by keeping that all under the same roof. We can operate under how it's written now. I just thought I'd recommend considering to give us that flexibility. I believe state rules hopefully will. We're still not certain. But generally, the way it works is cultivation and manufacturing. We'll try to get both licenses under the same roof. So that was really it for this specific language. I guess I did have one provision on the manufacturing. I just recommend looking at, actually, I'm asking for regulation here for my industry. I really like this because I've worked really hard to work with fire departments and building departments on making sure the extractions are meet the code and are safe. And since this is kind of a unique and new thing, I welcome having a requirement where we have to submit approval to the fire department, or at least showing our plans when we're using flammable and explosive solvents. Perhaps that's already addressed elsewhere in the code, but a lot of times I'm used to it being a part of the marijuana license as well. And that was pretty much it. Lastly, just real quick, it's a pleasure to be in Canton. From Sioux Falls, have a small point of pride, family connection. My grandfather was the founder of the Bidwell Company in 1961, so it's always fun to come to Canton and kind of see how that's evolved, and just had to bring that up, I'm sorry. So thank you for your time tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Perfect.
And I can pass this out as well.
We have a couple questions for you, Evan.
Okay.
Evan, Commissioner Poppins, not knowing anything about your industry.
Yes.
You brought up something about explosive and using chemicals. Talk to me a little bit about what risks there are. Since you brought that up, I'm now very curious as to what potential issues there are in the manufacturing extraction, wherever it is that you're talking about some chemicals that could cause a risk factor to explosion.
So the main things to consider is extractions can be done many different ways. But typically, we'll use butane or propane or ethanol. And basically, it's going through a closed loop extraction system where you use pressure and heat and that sort of thing. And to condense it all, you're separating the cannabinoids from the cannabis plant. That's how we get the oil that is then infused into the products, by extracting it. It's the same process that's used for food flavorings, colognes, perfumes, anything where you're extracting, one part of a bigger plant. It is a risk when it is not regulated. There have been examples of folks doing it at home who don't know what they're doing. Thankfully, I only know of a few situations of explosions at homes or things like that in the early days of Colorado. Very small, rarely do people get injured, but obviously I'm a compliance consultant. So I'm very proud to say that in the regulated industry, I don't know of a single incident, because if we do follow the International Fire Code, there should never be an explosion, because what that means then is you're operating in a explosion-proof booth where that booth is designed for that equipment, prevents things like sparks. And then it really just comes down to SOPs too. So the companies, will have to follow certain procedures for having that equipment just under the International Fire Code. So as long as we require compliance with those codes, I think it's a very minimal risk. Because while it's explosive, gasoline too, having it at home in your garage, there's a risk with that too. But if you follow some common sense, it's usually not a problem.
So, given that nationally this isn't addressed as an explosive material, you just adopt it as an explosive material and treat it as such then?
In almost every case I'm familiar with, the counties will just require that you follow the national standards. However, you'll have to submit a plan to your local fire department, and then they just verify that you are, in fact, your plans do follow that code. So it becomes pretty routine, but important, and that's why I brought it up. And typically I some of my industry colleagues don't get up and ask for more rules, but that's one that I help a lot of people get compliant with it, and I think it's important, so I wanted to bring it up.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I have one other question, if I may.
Yeah, come on up, Ed.
So yeah, I also kind of, this came to my attention today, so sharing notepads and stuff. It looks like cultivation is carved out for ag districts. I think that makes sense. Dispensaries would be commercial, and then you could do testing, cultivation, or product manufacturing all under light industrial. I guess the question that I had is, and I couldn't find a map online of like in Lincoln County how much light industrial there is and why that would maybe be set apart specifically from commercial. And I guess if this can change at further meetings, we could maybe get together with staff or anyone else on that to kind of sort that out. But I'm not sure that Emmett spoke to it, but a lot of times it does make sense to have cultivation. You know, you have what's called vertical integration. So think about going to Granite City. You know, they're brewing the beer there. They're processing it into mugs or whatever, and then you know, it's consumed on the property. We wouldn't be looking for consumption here on the property, but a lot of times from a regulatory and a business standpoint, it does make sense to not be moving product around from a cultivation to a product manufacturer, and there should probably be different carve-outs for each zoning here, but I'm in ramble mode at 9 p.m. on a Monday here, so
What are you suggesting?
I'm just asking, you know, in Lincoln County, how much light industrial is there, and is there a reason that commercial should be carved out separately from industrial with regards to the, I guess, cultivation and product manufacturing in particular?
And you're wondering why that can't be in commercial? Is
Yes.
that basically your question? Okay.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Toby?
Toby, could you answer that one, please?
So I'm suffering from Poppins syndrome here, but
Which syndrome is that, sir?
No
the one that I don't turn on the mic for sure.
I have several.
So there's many light industrial zone properties in the county. The reason we didn't do anything in I-2 is because there's only 3 parcels in the county that are zoned I-2. So we try to keep everything processing. So processing really to us is almost like a manufacturing part of it. And so we think that should be in an light industrial district with it. Should not be in a commercial district. That was just kind of the intent there.
Okay. I guess my only recommendation on that note would be to add cultivation as a possibility in commercial too. Or to light industrial.
To light industrial.
It is.
Okay.
It is. Yep.
Got it. All right. I missed
Yep. It's allowed in light industrial. The only thing that would be allowed in commercial would be the dispensary.
Okay.
So the retail
Yeah.
portion of it.
Okay.
So basically, what you guys are bringing up about the 2 legs of it being in the same building, that would just have to be in light industrial.
Got it. Cool. Okay. That all makes sense. And then, you know, pending what happens with Amendment A, it'll be a totally different set of.
Correct.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I do like the idea. So it'd be on page 85 of the thing would be the production facility, and I'm just trying to pencil out kind of how we'd word it, but adding the 13, which would say the facility shall submit a site plan and approval by the local fire department. With that, I think that'd be a good addition to it.
Will, for discussion, would the local fire department, for example, Worthing Volunteer Fire Department, would they have the expertise to know one way or another?
Or would it go to the emergency manager?
Yeah, let's do county emergency manager on that. Yeah. Instead of that, say.
And then again, does he have the expertise to make that decision?
Yeah, he would work with the state fire marshal. on that.
Harold would, yeah.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah. You have a question, Mike? Okay.
You recommend, I don't know which one will want to answer this, but you're recommending abiding by the standards for fire explosive material. Is under that criteria, am I still not using the mic properly?
No, you're doing great.
having water suppression or some type of other fire retardant system, because a lot of the areas in the rural South Dakota or in Lincoln County are serviced by rural water systems that do not have enough volume flow to do a water suppression. Is there an alternative, or would that be integrated into the plans that these facilities should adhere to then?
So my anticipation is that these facilities really should not be that large. Some people, and even my drawing, I don't want to give you the impression that we're expecting a 50,000 square foot building. People will kind of scale up with the market. So while it's kind of a smaller building, maybe 10 to 20,000 square feet, we could import water that basically feeds into a fire suppression system. That's quite common in Nevada because they have similar.
But you would recommend that there be some type of suppression system, or that would be part of the code. So yes, they'll either have a additional tank that does their own or does a dry system.
Exactly, as long as it's meets the code.
Okay, thanks.
And I was just going to add to the last comment too that in light of it being a volunteer fire department, I have worked in counties where they would allow some type of third-party expert, like an engineer, to sign off. Just a possibility, if that helps.
Yeah, I'm sure our local, they'll reach out to whoever they need to reach out to get an answer, yeah.
Well, they'll have to obtain a building permit through the county as well too, and we typically require some type of code review, submittal with it, so I guess we do that too, so.
Yeah, that makes sense. It doesn't matter if it's this or anything else, it'd be a code review.
Perfect.
All right,
Thank you, sir.
so with that, I will close the floor to public comment, and I don't even know what we do next. What do we do next, Mr. Brown?
Make a recommendation.
We vote to.
Yeah.
Recommend a version to it, and if you recommend version number 2, just add that number 13 that we would submit a site plan for approval to the Lincoln
Okay.
County Emergency Management Director.
So we make a motion in a second and go through that whole
Yep.
step. Okay.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve with the 13.
I'll second if you're doing version 2 with.
Yes, version 2 with the addition of 13.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, commissioners? I'm happy with it. I think it makes a lot of sense. It sounds good. All right, we'll go for a roll call. Joan?
Commissioner Ensted?
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes.
Commissioner Jongling?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we'll move on to new business. I want to take like 1A. Is that okay, Toby? I want to throw something out there real quick. Under new business, Joan, thank you very much.
I was saving that till the end, but yeah.
Oh, see what I did there?
You jumped the gun, but it has been my pleasure serving as the Planning Commission Secretary for these past almost 5 years. So.
Thank you very much, and good luck with everything in the future.
Yep, so as you are well aware, Joan is leaving us. June 9th will be her last day. She's followed her husband here and is following her husband to Missouri. But luckily, Joan will continue her career as a planner, which is great.
Good.
She's been a valuable part of our team, and we're going to all miss her quite a bit. But I'm glad that she mentioned it. And I kind of planned maybe a party, but it wouldn't work tonight because we had way too many contentious items. So we're all ready to go home. We're all ready to go home too. But if we will have some type of going away party for her, and we'll invite all of you to that too as well. So, but again, thank Joan for everything that she did, and we'll greatly miss her. But good that she's moving forward with her life and with her husband too. So okay. And that's I would rather end it that way because I got another 10 minutes of this stuff. But so yeah, exactly.
I was just afraid we're going to. All right, last one. We're done. All right, so everybody start mumbling and walking out. And it's like, oh.
Yeah. So this kind of came up last month, and it came up again tonight. Is that do we have some adequate provision in the A1 agricultural district to encompass a lot of kind of what we're seeing a lot more of, which is agricultural tourism type activities. But in addition to that, we also identified a couple other things that we wanted to propose. And so this would amend Article 3, which is the A1 agricultural district. The first would be is to add a provision for permitted special use for agricultural workforce housing. And so right now we don't have a provision in the ag district that if someone wanted to have some what I would call temporary housing in the agricultural district for labor help and things like that. So this would add a provision in there for that to be an option to occur. We have had some requests for it. We're trying to work through now how we would do that. This seems to be more of a logical route that would just keep it zoned agricultural and would allow that type of use. The county doesn't lose too much because they would have to use an eligibility or have an eligibility available. It would just be the type style of housing. It's more of a dormitory type housing. The second thing would be is to as you were tonight, we have a use for a roadside stand, which we don't have a definition for. And roadside seems a little antiquated because you can't put one of these uses in the right of way. I mean, it would have to be on private property and it would have to be accessed off of private property. And we have in the past issued roadside stand conditional use permits for uses. Nancy Kirstein would have been the last one that I think we did for that. But this would just change it to a wayside stand. The second part of this is that we have a use private outdoor recreation facility that doesn't, yep, go ahead.
One question on that. So if we change it to wayside stand, would we have a definition then?
Yep,
Okay.
that's, I'm adding that at the end here.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And then we have private outdoor recreation facility. And so there's always this question, well, if it's private, does that mean people can come on the site? Can it be commercial? Can they make money? It's really, that's, yes. I mean, they if it was private, that's the intent of it. So but to simplify it, just take off private and outdoor. So that's really non-debatable. And it really just becomes a recreation facility, which we've also added a definition at the end here. And then adding conditional uses, agri-tainment, and I'll get into the definition of that, direct market business, and then farm-based tourism, guest farm, and a sawmill. A sawmill, as you can see, doesn't really fit in the rest of those, but we have had requests for sawmill operations. We did approve, I think a year or two ago, a guy that does reclaimed wood sales and things like that. And so he's thinking of expanding and so doing more of the cutting and things like that. So then we would add the following definitions. So the agricultural workforce housing definition. I'm not going to go through all these. But the agri-tainment stuff would involve our corn mazes, our hay rides, and things like that. Direct market business is really the pick your own type stuff operations, which we have quite a bit of requests for. And then the farm-based tourism, which is just events where people come and tour and things. And then the guest farm would be accommodations associated with those agricultural activities. And then defining what a recreation facility is. And again, we don't have a definition for that. Sawmill adding a definition for that. And then wayside stand adding a definition for that. And I think the wayside stand really, you could still call it a roadside stand, but I think it created too much confusion tonight with that it has to be off a road or does not have to be a road and things like that. And so this would give us some clarification of what that is. And I think I heard tonight, and I heard it last month, that really what we're lacking is definitions of a whole. So whether or not we want to add additional uses into there, I'm for or against that, whatever you guys want to do, but I definitely think we need to add the definitions for
I agree.
What's in there. Because I think that's our problem tonight and last month is we really didn't have a clear enough definition of what it was. So would
Thanks
like to.
Thanks for doing that and putting the work into it. This would solve a lot of issues, I think, and that's just the direction we're going,
Yeah, 'cause
there's gonna be
people-
more of this type of thing.
I mean, you've seen it tonight, people love the animals, they wanna be, they wanna have all this kind of stuff, and the better definitions and the more defined we can get it, the easier it'll be. Like tonight when we wouldn't have these long drawn out conversations and it would be a little easier.
We wouldn't have these long if you just told me shut up.
That's enough. We got a definition, we're
It
done.
was being recorded, so I didn't feel that was appropriate.
And your daughter was listening.
She is listening.
Okay, good.
Sorry for interrupting. I just had to.
So basically, we'd add all these
Clarification.
what's the right word? I just said it here a little while ago.
In that definition.
The designations,
Still would have been.
and then we'd add the
still like
definitions
roadside
along with them, correct?
myself,
Okay.
because
Good.
otherwise, then it could have been.
So I'll be clear, really what it is you're doing, and some is we've kind of danced around this for a while,
with it too, yeah.
but you're adding what I'm gonna call commercial type uses to the agricultural
To ag, yeah.
districts that
Mhm.
are, that I shouldn't, they're directly related to agricultural uses.
Yes.
You
Yep.
know, and I think, honestly, I mean, we're getting so much demand for it, and we were doing the right thing in the past, and we ran into some roadblocks with opposition to particular sites. But that was good because it caused us to reflect on what our uses and our definitions were. So I think that's good. But so the direction we're looking tonight is, if you're okay with this draft, you can still make changes to it, but like to schedule a public hearing for next meeting to kind of get this rolling on this side. So
I think that'd be good. Do you need anything from us? Do you need a motion to
just
schedule?
if you have any corrections or changes or additions, or if you just want to say go ahead and just proceed next month with a public hearing with it. So we don't need a motion on it, but just direction.
Proceed.
I'd say,
I'd say do it.
I would say
let's go with it.
Okay, we'll do.
I do want to take a second, if I could, Toby and Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I want to thank this board, because you've listened to me tonight, and we've heard a lot of things in which this county is changing, and we just touched on something now that's pretty significant. We make it a little bit more difficult for what I grew up as livestock production in Lincoln County. You know, it's not easy to raise livestock in this county anymore. That's just one of the factors. But that is part of why it's changing and why people want to come here. But we have to be cognizant of all the changes, but I hope we can still keep the essence somehow of letting families that grew up in cattle production, hog production, still be able to do their things as well, as much as we're trying to let others do the newer aspect of roadside stands and whatever they may be that's coming. I hope we can still hold the essence together for what family farms were and are trying to become in livestock production themselves. So thank you all.
Well, I'll add to that is that we've submitted our department budgets, and I submitted a request for us to, for funds to update our comprehensive plan. And the funds would be needed because we're proposing to hire a consultant to do that. We wouldn't do it in-house. And I think everything that you've talked about tonight is things that we need to talk about at a greater level, and that's through the update of the comprehensive plan, is to engage, you know, for the first time really what's going on in the county. I mean, we see it on a monthly basis, and we see it on a daily basis, but it's really I'm gonna say this last few months has really become, you know, everywhere crazy. I mean, it's
Harrisburg
really,
is out of just crazy.
yeah, Harrisburg for one, they just annexed this month 340 acres for development. I mean, that you've converted to develop, or will convert to development. But I mean, we've got more rural residential petitions than we've had in the past. We've had more rezones than we've had in the past, and really, and it's all good. Development is good, but we also need to look as a whole of the county and say, okay, what is our policies? What is our vision? Because first and foremost, the reason we do all this stuff is not to create rules and regulations for people. It's to plan for the future. Is that the decisions we make today are going to impact the future, and how do we want that future to be? And we can shape that. You know, what people don't realize is that the decisions we make can shape what we want this county to be and how we want it to be. And we're just really getting hit with growth and development right now, population change and those different types of things. And by this fall, we're going to hear a population number that everybody will go, wow, I didn't know we were that big, you know? And so it's really changing us. But I hopefully, you know, and that's a pitch to you, but it's a pitch that I'm pitching to the county commissioners, is that this is important, that we need to engage this long-range plan to see what is it that we want for a future here, that part of it. Okay? And then I was a little cough during the whole thing, but again, thank Joan for the last part, is that you know, what we do, we're a small office, and we don't have a huge staff up there, so we're a family, and we all work really well together. But what's important to me is Joan is a true public servant. You know, everything that she did and everything that she contributed was for the benefit of really the county. And it's, you know, and it's good, that's the type of employees that we like to have, that we miss when they go. But I know that she cared about what she did, she cared about you guys, she cared about the vision and the future and all other stuff. And that's what we'll carry forward. We'll continue to do that, so. But again, thank Joan for years of service, so. So with that, I've done enough. We can adjourn unless you have any other questions or comments, so.
I have nothing either, except, again, thank you, Joan.
Thank you, Joan, so much.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn, Scott.
I'll second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All right, can we do roll call?
All right, my final roll call. Commissioner Enstead,
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
And it is okay to tell me to shut up, but yes.
and Commissioner Jonglane.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned.